on the table.
Right? Can everyone see me? All 5'1" of me. Okay. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here this morning. Wow, we can't believe the turnout and just the excitement around shining a light on problem gambling. So again, thank you so much for being here. This is our first ever event like this. And Robin, Brandy, and myself from the Northeast Problem Gambling Resource Center have been working on this along with Kelly, who you'll hear her story in just a moment. And if you didn't already know, September is Recovery Month. So if you are in this field, you hear about all sorts of events, and there's so many great things going on for Recovery Month. But one thing that we noticed is, there's not necessarily, a lot of talk and conversation around problem gambling outside of, our agency and a couple partners. So we were just, again, hoping to shine a light on problem gambling, which is often called the hidden addiction, because for many reasons. One being, you can't necessarily see it on a person. You can't see it in their eyes. You can't smell it on their breath. Their words aren't slurred. So oftentimes you can't tell when someone is struggling with a gambling problem. But I think it's safe to say that if you are a person struggling with this addiction or a family member, it doesn't feel hidden. It can affect your relationships, your finances. It can cause all sorts of stresses and problems in your life. But the good news is there's so much help available. And, again, that's one reason we're so excited to be here and to shine a light on gambling disorder, because there's so much help available. 4 years ago, Robin, Brandy, and I got hired by the New York Council on Problem Gambling to build this Northeast PGRC Resource Center. And, we're just every day so grateful that we get to do what we do, and that's really two things. It's so simple. We raise awareness about problem gambling, and we provide treatment to anyone that's negatively impacted. So we've been so fortunate to get people into treatment, whether that's with a clinician one-on-one or one of our fantastic outpatient programs like New Choices. Thank you for being here. But we're just so excited to get people the help that they're so desperately seeking. So we're just really grateful to be able to do that. So hopefully everybody went and got one of these awesome lights. And that really is just, again, we're trying to shed a light on gambling disorder, and that there is hope and help available. So I do have some note cards because I knew I would forget something. But again, I just wanted to take a moment to thank the New York Council on Problem Gambling for supporting us and this mission. We, of course, wanted to thank all of our amazing community partners. Thank you so much for being here today and taking the time out of your day. And, of course, to the individuals that, have used our resources, have called into our center, that are here today. I know there's some folks in recovery, so thank you as well for being here. And then I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Healing Springs and our awesome DJ Alex. Thank you so much for being here. We have some great music and things. Thank you. So pretty much the way it's going to work here, in just a moment, I'm going to have Kelly and Steve, two folks in recovery, and we have them come up and share their own personal story of recovery. And then from there, we're going to start our walk. So we'll direct you. The 1 mile starts right up here through the parking lot. There's signs, but we'll guide you. And we're just asking people to have their lights, walk with us. All the tablers, everybody here, please walk with us. And then when we come back, there's going to be some music. We're going to have some water, some snacks. And then we just hope you go around and visit the tables if you haven't already. And we have some games. So we just want people to, again, have a good time. And thank you so so much for being here. Without further ado, let me welcome Kelly and Steve.
Hey everybody, I'm Steve.
I'm Kelly.
I'm in recovery from problem gambling, and I've actually also been clean from, used to be a heroin and cocaine user, but I've been clean for over 13 years, so thank you. I have a fairly, I don't even want to say unique, there's been a lot of people that have dealt with the same thing I have, but, you know, I've dealt with addiction problems and mental health issues since I was fairly young. I started using narcotics at the age of 13, off and on until I was 25 when I finally got clean. So I went to Narcotics Anonymous for about a year, 2 different times to deal with that addiction. But then I stopped because I thought I had it all figured out. And I was abstinent. I never used drugs or alcohol again, but I didn't deal with the underlying emotional and mental health issues that bring addiction back to the surface. It was always bubbling underneath, you know. I had times where I was happy, you know. I met my wife Kelly during that time and we started a family. But in 2017, I started with my gambling addiction. I play daily fantasy sports. DraftKings, FanDuel. Has anybody heard of that? Has anybody seen those ads anywhere? I don't know. I think I might have seen
Every 2 seconds.
I don't know what those things were. Sorry. But I always played free fantasy and season-long football fantasy with my best friends from probably the early 20s. But in 2017, we were having a difficult time. We lived on Long Island at the time, and we just couldn't save. We couldn't buy a house. I was working an intense amount of hours, and it just felt like we could never get ahead. And those old feelings of never feeling good enough, or feeling like if I didn't do enough, that the people in my life would leave me, or I just never felt comfortable, happy with myself. I can't say never. I mean, like I said, there would be time periods where I would feel okay, but during these type of situations, that's when these problems would pop up. And I always felt like I was good at daily, at season-long fantasy. I always did well in my leagues I was in with my friends. And I just made a poor decision and tried daily fantasy to try to win some money because I thought that was the issue. I thought I needed to win some large sum of money and that would fix all my problems. That would make me worth it to my family. So I did that for about 8 months. Kelly called me for the first time and I stopped. Then we moved upstate up here and I made it until July 2019 when we bought our home, and when more financial issues hit, that was my trigger. It just felt like no matter how many hours I worked, I would work 60, 70 hours, making decent money, and it just felt like I could never get ahead. And because once again, I didn't treat it as an addiction, I didn't go into recovery, I ended up falling back, giving in to those feelings, and I started gambling again. And for the next 2 years, it was a downward spiral, losing tens of thousands of dollars, hiding the addiction from Kelly, and I don't think she realized something was going on, but like you say, it's the hidden addiction that's so easy to hide, because when I was a heroin user, you could see I was losing weight, you could see track marks, you could see everything. Gambling, you can't see anything. At least, it just appears as if you're depressed or you have anxiety or whatever. And but anyway, so that came to a head on May 2nd. Of 2021, so my last day of bet was 5/2/21, and ever since then, you know, it was a struggle at first, but I haven't had any urges at that, you know, since then. But thankfully, I finally took it seriously. I realized that through my drug addictions, through these multiple recurrences of gambling and not doing anything, I knew that if I didn't do something now, I was going to lose my family. And I was going to lose myself forever. And I just decided at that point, I don't want that anymore. So I went to my first GA meeting that Friday. I started listening to podcasts, and over the next few months, got connected to some online groups where I still go, once or twice a week to my online GA or problem gambling support group meetings, listening to podcasts. One of the greatest things was being connected through a podcast. We heard the number for the National Council on Problem Gambling, which connected us to the New York Council on Problem Gambling, which thankfully hooked us up with our therapist, who's changed our lives. And I also do a podcast on recovery and problem gambling called Fantasy or Reality, the GPP. But by being in recovery, it's changed my life. It's changed who I am. I mean, I almost feel like I've finally become the best version of myself. I finally feel happy with who I am. And when I run into these problems, these financial issues, life still happens. And when these things happen, I have the tools now to recognize them and to work through them in a healthy way. I know going to gambling or drugs is just masking the addiction. It's like taking Advil for pain instead of actually dealing with what's actually happening. So instead of masking the pain with a painkiller, actually do the hard work to find out what is going on underneath. And I did a lot of hard work with my therapist and to the meetings every week. And my life couldn't be any better now. And a lot of that is through the support of my wife, Kelly, and what we've been doing. And part of that is sharing my story, sharing our story. And that was one thing I did not do on all my other attempts. I would almost treat it as something I had to fix real quick, get past it, and I just never wanted to be seen as an addict. I always thought that people saw us as less than. I didn't ever want to, I knew at the time, and when I went to NA, I knew I had to, go through the recovery process or do whatever I thought I had to do or was told I had to do. And once I thought I had it, once I got comfortable again, I would step back. I would never really talk about it. I would always downplay it. But now I'm just open. I talk about this freely, and that's what helps me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly. I'm Steve's wife, aka the affected other. My journey, I guess, began 16 months ago. When I first found out about Steve's addiction, I can't say that I was overly surprised about it. I had known his struggles in the past, but this one kind of came as a shock just because, like everybody says, I was very blinded by it. I did not know that gambling, and again, a gambling addiction was a thing. Of course, I've heard of drug addictions, I've heard of alcohol addictions, but never gambling. So when I had seen that Steve was gambling, my initial reaction to that the first time around was telling him to just stop. I said, what are you doing? We're trying to buy a house, we're living with your parents, why are you doing this? You need to just stop. There was a small thought in the back of my head that said that maybe this has something to do with his addictive personality, but I kind of just pushed it aside. I really wasn't ready to go into what was going on with him. I was only looking forward to our future. I really wasn't worrying about whatever was going on with Steve. So when I found out about this again, just recently, 16 months ago, I knew this was a problem for him. I knew that there was something that we had to do about it. Initially, it was the most devastating thing I think I ever had to experience. I thought that my marriage was over. I thought that my life was over. So during that time, Steve told me to try to get in touch with the National Council, which then put me through to the New York Council, and I spoke with Amy. She was the first step in my recovery. She put me through to an amazing therapist who, like Steve said, changed my life. He changed not only my marriage, he saved everything about my life. And he actually made me see what I wanted to be in my future. I decided that I wanted to do what he does. I wanted to help people the same way that he helped me and Steve. To witness the transformation that Steve has gone through, it just blew my mind away, how much our mental state affects everything about us. I was in awe of the work that he was doing and the work that Steve was doing and even the work that I was doing. Without all of this work, I wouldn't be able to be as supportive. I needed to understand this addiction, and I didn't know that I ever could understand addiction because I don't have an addictive personality. But I know that I needed to listen to my husband. I needed to understand this because I needed to know that this had nothing to do with me. I played my part in it, but I know that he was struggling mentally with himself. So in order for me to help him, I had to have an understanding of what he was going through. So with the work of therapy, it allowed me to see it from a different perspective because I was one of those people that just saw addictions as a weakness. This changed my mentality of everything. And for that, I will always be grateful. I will always be grateful of my therapist. I will always be grateful to the council. I will always be grateful to my husband to making this transformation. And to myself, all the work that we've been doing, and that's why we find that it's so important for us to share our story, because people just automatically think that this is only something that they're going through. They don't realize that so many people are behind this struggling with them. So as an affected other, I had found that nobody else had a podcast talking about what it was like to be an affected other. So I started my own podcast as well. I wanted to put a voice to what I was feeling. So I kind of just jumped on there as if this was like my journal, my own personal journal. This is what I'm going through today. This is what I'm feeling because I want others to know that it's so normal to feel like this. So with that, we're just doing a lot of work in mental health. I'm going back to school. I'm hoping to be a mental health therapist as well, just because I feel like it's so important to help other people, and it's just my way of giving back. So that's basically our story. And thank you, everybody, for coming here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. We thought it was really important to have Kelly and Steve share the recovery story. Because, we can get up here all day long and talk about, the work that we do and how we help people, but I think to actually hear folks that are really going through this and what it's like, and, the other side, just hearing how beneficial it is to, make that really difficult call and ask for help and, to come out the other side. That's what we need to be talking about, that recovery is possible. And that's why we have Recovery Month. We want to talk about, you can get your life back, you can find happiness, and it's all possible. And you're showing us that, you've done the work and you made that hard call, and, we're just so grateful, for this idea to have this run and for you to come today, share your story. And, with that said, I'd love for everybody, including our wonderful community partners here, grab your lights, and we're gonna kick it off here. We're gonna do our 1 mile. So follow us. Robin, I think here, can lead the way to